So I want to talk about what these fascists are trying to do to the courts. And I'm going to play a video here. Now don't worry, it's not of Donald Trump. Although, if I have time at the end, I do have a short clip that I'd like to play of this buffoon. But I assure you, it's only to mock him. Now this clip that I'm going to play is of Alina Habba. You probably know this woman. She was Trump's lawyer, or one of his lawyers in his criminal cases, and in some of his civil cases. I think she represented him against E. Jean Carroll, who successfully sued him for sexual abuse. I believe she represented him in the fraud cases in New York that he lost spectacularly. Oh yeah, she was the one who, such an idiot she is, she failed to request a jury. Remember, Trump was so mad that the judge was able to decide the case all on his own. Well, it's because his idiot lawyer didn't request a jury. Anyway, this woman, who is now the interim U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey, she was just sworn in to that position. I don't believe she was Senate confirmed, and she probably never will be. She'll probably never be put up for Senate confirmation. I mean, why would he? Why even bother with that anymore? Why put people up for confirmation? Advice and consent? Pfft, who needs that? Why does a dictator need advice and consent from the Senate to do what he wants? So there's no point. So she'll probably be in this position for the duration without even going before Congress. Anyways, this woman, this despicable woman, was on Fox News talking about Judge Bozeman, who is the district court judge overseeing the case involving, about those deportations where Trump claimed that these people were terrorists and gang members, and he invoked the Alien Enemies Act and deported them to El Salvador without any due process, without a court hearing. And so this is the judge overseeing that. And they're talking about this on Fox News. So I want you to watch this. Pay attention to all the crap that comes out of her face hole, and then we'll talk about it. So watch this.
Yeah, that's 100% right. We have something called separation of powers for a reason. This is the executive branch. The president is working out of that to keep America safe. And I want to really understand the rationale between trying to keep criminals in our great nation that came in illegally and then committed crimes. I'm not understanding what power he thinks he has and why that's in the best interest of this nation. But that's not his decision anyway. The decision is President Trump's. And we have to stop any kind of political enticed judges from making these decisions on the bench. And he's right. These TROs have to stop. What they're trying to do is stop the President Trump's agenda because he is skyrocketing right now. He truly has so much approval. If you look at it, it's over 80% of Americans want illegal immigrants out. President Trump's approval rating is at an all-time high of anyone. He had an 80 million person mandate on November 5th, and he is keeping true to his promises. These judges have no business coming in and trying to stop the Trump administration from pursuing their agenda, which was the America First agenda to keep us safe. Illegals need to get out. Criminals need to get out. And that is what he's going to continue to do. And it's unfortunate that they're wasting taxpayer dollars yet again trying to hold him up in court.
So there she is, despicable woman that she is. And she's there just lying, lie after lie after lie. Of course, the Fox News audience is far too stupid and ill-informed to realize that they're being lied to, which is why it works so well on them. You can't have a network like Fox News exist and succeed without a whole lot of stupid people. Anyway, let's talk about what she said. Now, the first thing is she was condescendingly talking about the separation of powers. We have a little thing called the separation of powers in this country. And who is this judge to tell the President of the United States how to do his job? Well, I'm not really sure if Alina Habba actually understands the separation of powers, because judging from the work she did as Trump's lawyer, she doesn't seem to understand too much about the law. But let's school her, shall we? So separation of powers, what is that exactly? Well, that is the most fundamental aspect of our constitutional system. Remember, these people had just fought a revolution against a king who had absolute power. They wanted to make sure that that couldn't happen again in this country. So what they did was they took the three main functions of government and divided those up among three different branches of government. So you have the power to make law, the power to enforce the law, and the power to decide cases and controversies that arise under the law. So in Article 1, they set up the powers of Congress to make the law. In Article 2, the president's power to enforce the law. And in Article 3, the power of the courts to adjudicate cases and controversies that arise under the law. So what did we have in this situation in which Alina Habba says that the courts have no business getting involved? Well, you had the president enforcing immigration law, actually violating it, but enforcing immigration law, right? That's what he was doing. And that's his authority to do. But we had people object to the way he was doing it, claiming that what he was doing was not legal or constitutional. And so when you have someone who makes that kind of a challenge against an action by the president, what is the appropriate way to deal with that? Well, you file a lawsuit. You go to the Article 3 branch of government, whose job it is to adjudicate cases and controversies that arise under the law. In this case, that arise in the enforcement of the law by the president. And as we learned in 1803 in Marbury versus Madison, it is the job of the courts to say what the law is. That is long settled constitutional law. That is the basic job of the courts, to adjudicate cases and controversies and to say what the law is. So what happened here is we had a lawsuit filed challenging the administration's enforcement of the law, the deportations of these people to El Salvador. Okay, so now we are properly before the judge. The judge is now properly exercising his Article 3 constitutional authority exactly as was devised by the framers in the separation of powers that Alina Habba obviously doesn't understand. Or she does, and she's just lying about it because it's the Fox News audience and she can get away with lying about it. So that whole argument is BS. Now, as to this argument that the judge is just trying to protect criminals and terrorists and gang members and keep them in this country, while all Donald Trump is trying to do is to get them out of this country to protect the American people, you know, this is how they can evade or change the subject completely from what this is really about. And they know, again, that the Fox News audience will eat this crap up. What we all understand this is really about is due process and constitutional rights, following the Constitution. And remember, going back to the separation of powers, just because a branch of government, and here we're talking the president, is given certain authorities under the Constitution, it doesn't mean they get to violate the law in exercising their authority. So yes, he has the authority to deport people, but he can only do so consistent with the law, including the Constitution. And here, he clearly is not. He is doing it pursuant to a law that does not apply, right? He's invoked a law to deport people without due process. And by the way, that 1798 law doesn't even allow the president to deport people completely without due process. It provides for judicial review. So even if that law applied here, which it clearly does not, he still would be violating it. Anyway, what this is about is enforcing or safeguarding constitutional rights. And it's not to protect gang members and criminals and terrorists. It's to protect everyone. It is to require the government to prove that the people the people that they want to deport are who the government claims they are, and are subject to deportation under our law for the reasons the government claims that they are. Without judicial review, how are we to ensure that these people are criminals and terrorists or are otherwise in violation of our laws and are therefore subject to deportation, that they're here illegally or for whatever other reason that they are subject to deportation? How else are we to determine it? We're just supposed to take the administration's word for it? That's not how it works. Judicial review is the court's proper role here, Alina Habba. This is not a king who gets to enforce the law and decide whether or not he is doing it legally. That is the job of the courts. And it is the job of the courts so that all of our rights are protected. Now, here's where I think they're going with all of this. Because why are they doing this, right? Why are they invoking a 1798 law that doesn't even apply and which he doesn't need? That's a key to this. He doesn't need to invoke the Alien Enemies Act to deport these people. He's already got plenty of existing law that would allow him to deport these people. First of all, if they're in this country illegally, that's reason enough. If you are here illegally, like for example, I talked about one of these idiot Trump cultists who voted for this guy. I love bringing this guy up. Brad, our good old buddy Brad. He married a woman from Peru. She was here on a student visa. She overstayed her visa. And then he married her. They go to Puerto Rico for their honeymoon. And when they come back, they land, they're going through the airport, and she gets arrested and deported. Why? Because she wasn't here legally. Her visa had expired. She came here legally initially, but she didn't renew her visa. It expired. So she no longer had permission of the United States government to be in this country. She was not here legally. And for that reason alone, she could be deported. Okay, so if any of these people are in the country illegally that have been detained and sent to El Salvador, if any of them were in this country illegally, Trump already has all the law on his side to deport those people. All he had to do is prove in court that they were here illegally. And then on top of it, if they're criminals and gang members, that just makes it even easier to deport them. The point is, he doesn't need to invoke the Alien Enemies Act and deny them certain degrees of due process. So why is he doing this? And again, like I said, even if that law did apply, it provides for judicial review, which he's also ignoring. He's saying he's entitled under the Alien Enemies Act to deport these people with no due process whatsoever. None at all. He can just say that they're terrorists, say that they're gang members, say that they're criminals, and because he labeled them as such, that entitles him to arrest them and deport them, and he's not answerable to anyone, including the courts. That is scary. Now, why are they doing it? Because, in my opinion, they are preparing the courts and the Congress and the system to accept this idea that he can arrest people off to wherever he wants to just because he labels them a criminal or a terrorist or an illegal, whatever. Take a look at this graduate student from Tufts University who was here legally, but who Marco Rubio decided he was just going to revoke her student visa because apparently her views, her political views, an op-ed that she wrote in the student newspaper. He revokes her student visa, and she is arrested on the street by federal agents, not identifying themselves, not in uniform, in an unmarked car, and wearing masks. They arrest her, they take her off, they essentially kidnap her, and then they immediately fly her down to a detention center in Louisiana. Again, in violation of another judge's order who ordered them not to take her out of the state until a hearing could be had. They said, screw that, nope. we're taking her to Louisiana. Why are they doing these things? Because I think they are trying to soften the courts, to get the courts to comply with this, to get the Congress to go along with it, with this idea that he can arrest people and do whatever he wants with them without any due process at all, without court involvement. And by the way, this case is now up at the Supreme Court. Trump has appealed it to the Supreme Court because, you know, he was struck down by the judge. He was struck down by an appellate court on this temporary ruling from the judge. Remember, they haven't even had a hearing on the merits yet. Anyways, he's asked the Supreme Court to take up this case. Don't know if they're going to or not. We'll have to wait and see. But if all of this is rubber stamped by the courts, then all Donald Trump has to do to arrest anyone and thereafter do whatever he wants with them is to just label them a terrorist, a gang member, or a criminal. That's all he has to do. And what can he do with them? I don't know. Deport them? Send them to a prison camp in El Salvador? I mean, we had Kristi Noem standing in front of inmates at this prison in El Salvador, threatening people in the United States that sending you to this prison camp in El Salvador is one of the tools we have at our disposal. What else could they do? I don't know. Maybe they can construct camps of some sort here in the United States and arrest people and send them to these camps. Maybe we don't even get to know the location of these camps. Maybe, I don't know, refer to them as concentration camps, maybe? I don't know. Just spitballing it here. Because if this is accepted, this idea that Trump can do this, then what is to stop him from doing this to American citizens? I mean, if he's doing this all illegally, he's violating the law, violating the Constitution, violating the rights of these people who he claims are illegal aliens, who he claims are terrorists and gang members. We don't really know because there's been no due process. If he could do it to them, why can't he do it to an American citizen? And all he's got to do is say, well, they're not American citizens, or so what? They're criminals, or they're terrorists, or they're gang members because they have a tattoo. I think that's where they're going with all this. I don't want to talk too much longer. Should I get to this clip? Yeah, why don't we end it on a light note? Here is a video clip of our orange buffoon convicted felon president. I guess this was the swearing in ceremony. I don't have the whole clip. I just have this little clip of him with Alina Habba. And he is, he's struggling to find the right words. So watch this.
And we hope this court system that's become so active all of a sudden in trying to protect some very, very bad people of crime, they have to stop.
People of crime? This is what happens when a stupid person goes off script. You know, he can't think of the word criminal, so he comes up with a person of crime. So I guess that's what he is, because he's a convicted criminal. So I guess he's a person of crime. Person of crime, Donald Trump. What a freaking moron. The American people chose him. They chose it. Well, that's it for now. If you'd like to help support this channel and get access to exclusive content, sign up on Patreon or Substack. I'll drop links in the description below. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.